Mark. He has his surgery now, October 22nd.
Oh, yeah?
At the Miami-Dade services? Perfect. She's right, he's here actually.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
she's in the
yeah,
office,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly.
I swear to God.
I'll check good.
Yeah.
I had to wait for this.
Smells so good.
What's the matter?
I'm gonna have to. Smells so good.
We'll call it some charter. HI director. His phone.
Oh, thank you for putting in the effort though.
It's good though.
Sure, it's good.
Anyway. Yes. Too funny, right?
Okay. Okay. Well, you know what? Leave it. I'll just do it for public forum because if we do consent and it's something on there, we're gonna not pull it out. So I'll leave it. Erica. Let me turn that on. I'm not gonna mention.
I agree with.
I'm not gonna mention it though.
Where? Chief, where?
Coming out of the basement.
Chief, you might have been visiting.
Is Erica's Heidi? Is Heidi on? Okay, we'll give it another minute or two. Is there anyone virtually to speak at public forum? She's on? Okay. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Mitchell,
Here.
Vice Mayor Bravo, Councilman Best,
Present.
Councilman Behet,
Here.
Councilman Vasquez.
Here.
There is a quorum present.
Thank you, Erica. I'll stand, please, for the invocation by Councilman Vasquez.
Loving Heavenly Father, we come to you this hour asking for your blessing and help as we are gathered together. We pray for guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you would clearly show us how to conduct our work with a spirit of joy and enthusiasm. Give us the desire to find ways to excel in our work.
Amen. Everyone, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here. Those of you here in person and those of you that are attending virtually. The first order of business is our awards and presentations, and agenda item 4A is Miami Springs Police Department swearing in ceremony for new officer Jorge Figueria. Figueria.
I believe. Yeah. I'd like to introduce Mayor and Council Manager, newest officer George Fogata. Stand up there, George, and turn around. George is a resident of Miami Springs. He was born in August of 1995. He's a graduate of Miami Springs High and has his bachelor's degree from Florida International University. I know he's joined here today by his parents and some other relatives and friends. So George, would you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Florida against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, to uphold and enforce the laws of the United States, the State of Florida, the County of Miami-Dade, and the City of Miami Springs. I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservations or purposes of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of police officer of the City of Miami Springs, acting to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations and welcome aboard. Now, let me say a few words to his family and friends. Thank you. And I thank you for instilling in George the qualities that I saw that made me say, yes, I'm going to hire him as a police officer. As I told George, and I tell everybody that I interview for this position, a lot of people apply, but very few make it here. You know, we try to pick the best psychological testing, background screening, education, and all that. And what I like to think would be the best fit for this organization, and one that I want to represent, not just the police department, but in essence, representing me too. So thank you for doing an outstanding job of raising such a great young man. One of the greatest joys that I have as being chief is swearing in a new officer. So I welcome you to the Miami Springs Police family. We are a family. As you can see, some of his new mates from the department are here. Some of them are working. Some of them came on their own time. The sergeant here, Sergeant Vargas, and some of the other officers were busy with a call. So they just ran in here to help support George in his swearing in. George, I wish you an excellent career, a long and healthy and safe career, and welcome aboard again. Okay.
Amen.
Family would like to take some pictures. Welcome.
I want to take your mask down just for a minute, just temporarily. Mask mandates.
We got more family.
There's more family, Bill.
Oh, more family. Oh,
Absolutely.
Please join them. Join them. Got more. Got more. Hold the camera.
So George, tonight, you take them out to dinner, okay? Very much for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, officer, for
George.
serving and protecting our community. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Congratulations.
Good night. Take care. Enjoy.
Okay, and our next agenda item is 4B, presentation of the Police Officer of the Month Award.
Mayor, I'd like to call Sergeant Albert Vargas, who will read the nomination letter.
Mayor, Council, good evening.
Good
I'm
Good
sorry
evening.
for not being in my Class A's today, but we're tied up on a call, so we're actually all working the road tonight. I'd like to present Officer Irbar with the Officer of the Month for the month of September. On September 10th, 2021, Officer Finicet Irbar was on patrol when he observed a black 2016 Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon traveling westbound on South Royal Ponciano Boulevard. The vehicle had dark prohibited tints and a metal frame around the license plate obscuring the county of issue. Based on these violations, Officer Irbar conducted a traffic stop on the vehicle at the intersection of Kenmore and Oakwood Drive. As Officer Irbar approached the vehicle, he detected a strong odor of cannabis emanating from within the vehicle. Officer Irbar noticed the sole occupant of the vehicle appeared to be nervous and sweating profusely. As a result of his behavior, he asked the driver for consent to search the vehicle. The driver verbally consented and stepped out of the vehicle for the search to be conducted. A search of the vehicle yielded $25,255 in quick count bundles and different denominations in a black coach bag in the backseat of the vehicle. Officer Irbar also found two 30-gallon plastic storage containers in the rear compartment containing 40 individually vacuum sealed plastic bags. Each bag contained approximately 1 pound of cannabis, with a total weight of approximately 44 pounds altogether. Officer Irbar's sound use of proactive patrol techniques and keen investigative skills led to the removal of the illegal narcotics and its cash proceeds off the streets of Miami Springs. I would like to formally commend Officer Irbar for a job well done, and I recommend that he receive Officer of the Month for the month of September 2021. Gotta wait for your plaque.
Absolutely.
Good job.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Chief.
That's all I have for now.
And
Thank
thank
you.
your
Thank you.
staff for serving and protecting our community and our residents. Okay, the next agenda item is the Yard of the Month Award for October. And my understanding is the homeowner is not here, but I just wanted to go ahead and mention the homeowner resides at 145 Deer Run. And so we're presenting this Yard of the Month Award for October for the Oliveri Corsino family at 145 Deer Run. And we thank them for keeping Miami Springs beautiful. We'll get the award to them. And our next agenda item is a presentation by Lane Martin for requesting a donation for the upcoming Honor Flight South Florida event. Welcome, Elaine.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members for allowing me to address you this evening. I've been a volunteer with Honor Flight South Florida, which is one of 125 Honor Flight hubs across the United States, for 7 years, and a firm supporter of our mission to take every veteran who is able to travel, who served in World War II, the Korean conflict, during the Vietnam era, up to Washington, D.C. to see the memorials built in their honor and to pay homage to their comrades who never made it back home. It's a very long and emotional day for these veterans, and a day many of them will say is in the top 3 to 5 days of their lives, usually only after the marriage and the birth of their children. Any of you, and especially Councilman Best is very familiar with this, that have attended our city's Veterans Day ceremonies in recent years have witnessed some of the greatest generation from our own city who were proudly wearing their blue Honor Flight shirts. So we, Honor Flight South Florida, took Ed Winslow in 2013 to DC, Dr. Claire Madan in 2014. In 2015, we escorted Norm Anderson, Joe Bonacy, Johnny Hatfield, and I apologize if I mispronounce this one, Al Melarango.
Melaranga.
Okay, thank you. And then in 2016, Chuck DeLongcamp. We've, but those are our World War II, and may the dearly departed among that group rest in peace. Obviously, Honor Flight was impacted by the pandemic, but we were resumed flying last month after a 20-month hiatus. Our next flight is actually this coming Sunday, October 17th, with 75 veterans flying out of Miami International Airport very early in the morning. Check-in for them is 4:15 a.m. This flight has special ties to the Miami Springs, Virginia Gardens area in that our, what we call flags of our hero honoree. The flags of our hero honoree is a veteran who is no longer with us that we choose to honor on a flight and have a number of times where we honor them at different memorials. This particular flight, we are honoring Private First Class Bruce W. Carter, who amongst his many accolades received a Purple Heart and a Medal of Honor recipient. So his 90-year-old mother, Georgie Carter Krell, is accompanying us on the flight as well. And I think many of you know, Bruce attended Miami Springs Junior and Senior High School, and his mother, of course, still lives in Virginia Gardens. He was killed in action at 19 years of age. Just, that's unbelievable. I was out of town for our September flight, but I found out afterward that things have changed again due to COVID. And just to serve coffee at the airport to our veterans cost us in excess of $800 just for coffee. So that's what they had for their breakfast. And I put that in quotes, coffee and a small Danish. So I set a challenge to myself to seek donations, recognizing this flight is dedicated to Bruce Carter from Virginia Gardens, Commissioner Sosa, and the city of Miami Springs to sponsor a more proper continental breakfast. You are the last ones to be approached, and I hope you will consider being one of the sponsors for the breakfast on this flight. We will have 180 people on the flight. We charter an entire plane. 2 of those, 75 are veterans. 2 of those are from our city. Vietnam veterans Larry Williams and Carlos Garcia. Out of the guardians that accompany these veterans, 4 are from our city. And we also, of course, part of our 180, we have paramedics from Miami-Dade Fire Department. We bring counselors from Bruce Carter VA Health System because it's a large group of Vietnam veterans and it's going to the wall for some of them. It's the first time they've been there. So we have counselors and a handful of honor flight volunteers. So I would be very grateful for you if you can find your way to give some assistance in getting them off to a good start to the day. Any questions?
Through the chair,
Council.
how much you looking for, Elaine?
Well, I will tell you what I have. Commissioner Sosa is covering the coffee.
Expensive burn coffee.
I actually was hoping she would get the price reduced, but instead she gave me one of those community-based organization grants. Virginia Gardens, I asked them for $250. They gave me a check for $500. So
Through the chair,
I'll just leave it at that.
Mayor, I think we should match that in all fairness. I don't know what my colleagues think on that, but this is certainly something that, doesn't happen every day. And we're not going to be approached in anything even close to this often. So
That's what I was going to propose is 500.
That'd be my thought.
Okay.
I want to second that and through the chair, if I may, just full disclosure, my son is a volunteer for helping serve breakfast. That day, my son is an Eagle Scout, and Elaine and I and him spoke last night about the details of being there.
At what we call dark 030. Yes.
Dark 030. And I could tell you from experience that it took me probably about 15 years to get to the Vietnam War Memorial because I have friends on that wall.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I don't know how deeply moving this is. And also, Larry Williams is assistant scoutmaster,
Right.
and some of you wrote some letters, and that's a nice touch, by the way.
And James Fulton is going to be a guardian. Elizabeth Fisher's a guardian. Juan Iglesias, who's also a scout dad. And actually last night I recruited, our final seat is being filled by an Eagle Scout graduate, Ben Jarrell. So,
Oh, Ben. Yes.
Yep. And the Lions Club is actually in charge of serving the breakfast. Victor's going to be the 6th or 7th person on the team, but yeah. So
Wonderful.
I've recruited, I've tried to exhaust all my connections in the cities.
Sounds like you did pretty good, Elaine.
And I wasn't aware until last night that
Yeah.
how much coffee costs at the. I've always known coffee was expensive at the airport.
Is it because your son is serving it? Is
Yeah,
that
no,
why it's so
I
expensive?
was like, well, no, he doesn't drink coffee, but he'll be
Doesn't drink
there at
coffee.
3 o'clock in the morning.
Mayor?
But just a last thought on this is that in addition to everything that Elaine said about the flight, it is a 1 day. In other words, they're flying up there. They're going to be for the ceremonies and they're flying back.
Oh, my goodness.
And so
that's
it's a long day for them. And I think a little more than coffee should be served.
Mhm.
to
Especially
honor-
those monuments, you need breakfast
Yeah,
because
yeah,
Yeah, we
just
feed them all
very
day
much,
long. We
no,
feed them
it's
all day
just-
long, but yeah.
they really, it's amazing what, the emotion that you
Right,
feel
right.
walking there and looking at those monuments. Okay, so we have Councilman.
To the chair, I wasn't very specific in terms of where that money's coming from, and I'd like to recommend that come from the council event fund.
All right, so I have motion and you second it. Let's take a vote. Erica?
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Best,
Aye.
Councilman Fahet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
The motion carries.
And I thank you, Erica. And I just wanted to mention while Elaine's here, this is one small, Elaine is one of our, I'm always in awe of the residents in our community that just on their own live their lives doing so many deeds throughout our community, for our community, but for so many other communities too. And Elaine is a prime example of one of those behind the scenes that you're involved with so many charitable events and organizations. And I know you're always, even at the farmer's market, I've run into you and you're selling items to raise money for a charity. It's amazing. So thank you. Thank you for all you do for our community and for other communities.
I'm just going to add one PS. Normally we have what's called a homecoming, which is a surprise to the veterans. When they come home, usually we advertise it to the public. Unfortunately, we're under COVID restrictions and Miami-Dade Airport Authority. Aviation Department we are only inviting the veterans' families quietly, and they can bring a few friends. Having said that, I have submit presumptuously that you guys would help out. No, I had to turn in names this morning. So you may get an invitation. I don't know how it will be addressed, but hopefully to join the not in the secure area, but we had some dignitaries at the last thing. So I put in for Mayor Dino, Mayor Mitchell, and I don't know if it'll say you can bring anybody. And of course for Rebecca Sosa. So hopefully that'll come through too.
Okay. Thank you, Elaine.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you,
for all you- for
Elaine,
this and all you do.
before you leave, tell Larry Williams to pay attention during mail call on the airplane.
I have them all still at my house. They're going in the envelope tomorrow night. Yep.
Okay, we move on to open forum and we have one person scheduled to speak at our open forum, Nestor Suarez. Hello, come on. Yes. Pardon me?
Put it down for item B. I don't know if you want to wait to item B.
Was it item on the consent?
Well, item B
agenda
is a
or
consent agenda. Which item B,
New business.
8B, 9B? You want
It's on
to, okay, 9.
B.
On 9B,
Okay, that's
consent.
consent agenda, so we could pull
move
it
it to the-
out to discuss, since you want to speak on it.
Mayor, you can speak during public comment. It's fine.
Okay, all right, go ahead, Nestor. We'll know that it's for that item.
May I take this off to speak?
Yes, of course.
Good evening, council, mayor, and city staff. So I was going through the agenda item earlier today, and I was kind of going through and I see item 9B, recommendation by council, approving expenditures to River Gazette as a sole source provider on an as-needed basis in the amount of $35,300 for greater local access and more informative notification of advertising and legal notices to the residents of public ordinances and state and federal grant awards of the city, as there is only one local source that delivers to every household in Miami Springs for the required services and as funds were budgeted, et cetera, et cetera. So I see that and I go, it is not a sole source provider. Now there's certain things within that budget and there's, I guess budget here is 35.3 it says here, but then another part, it says 32.2. Within that budget, there are certain things that are required where the Gazette's the only one that can do it. Those are certain legal requirements that must be published in the local newspaper. MiamiSprings.com is not a local newspaper. We don't expect to take over any of that operation. However, when it comes to general advertising, promotion of events, promotion of sitting functions, the ability to communicate things rapidly to the community, there is one provider in this town that is extremely fast, that publishes daily, that communicates with a huge audience. MiamiSprings.com reaches over 15,000 residents every single month. Our website, and I've sent you guys a Alexa traffic rank. Alexa is operated by Amazon, and they'll give you a score on virtually any website that you want, unless it gets like almost like no traffic, then you don't get a score. We rank way ahead of the city's official website in terms of the amount of traffic we get on a daily or weekly or monthly basis. So what I'd like to present is, and I sent you guys an unsolicited bid. I saw this, I go, let me send you guys an unsolicited bid. I know that we weren't prepared for this in today's conversation, but I said, I got to bring this up because there's no way that the Gazette is the only operation in town, because it's not. In fact, I think many of you know that on a daily, weekly basis, I'm going to get a whole lot more traffic than the Gazette does, and I love the Gazette. I don't want to say anything in the Gazette, but my point is they're not exclusive. There are our competitors. There are other options here within the city of Miami Springs specifically, and, Florida Web Marketing, which operates MiamiSprings.com. From a traffic standpoint, we have it. From email, if you needed it, whether there's an urgent notice, something, whether it's a water main break, telephone lines were down last week. If you need to email, as many residents, I have 8,000 email subscribers. I think the city maybe have a couple hundred. The ability to communicate quickly to the residents of Miami Springs, I can do that. Whether the city's interested or not, I'd be more than happy to discuss it and questions that you may have. My main point here is that it's not fair to say here that they are a sole source provider when clearly it is not. With the exception of things that legally must be printed. Aside from that, I have, and again, I love the Gazette. I remember when I first moved here in 89, loved getting, that we had our own paper, like a previous neighborhood I was in where I had to look at the neighbor section of the Herald. I love getting the Gazette, still love getting the Gazette, but they're not the only player in town. And today, we're over 80% of people get their news online from a device, from a screen. Come on, guys. I can communicate the information way faster to a lot of people. That's basically what I wanted to bring up. Or if you have any questions, I'm here for you. If anyone wanted to address something with me, either here in public or privately, I'm more than available to respond to any questions you may have.
Through the chair.
Okay, 1 second, Councilwoman. Heidi, I'm gonna let us have, even though it's, I had him signed up under public forum since he wanted to speak in the consent agenda. Is that all right for us to ask questions?
If the council wishes to engage in a discussion, they may.
Okay,
Normally, I'll give you the same advice that I would normally give. Public comment is not a time to engage in a back and forth discussion. It's a time for the council to receive commentary from the public on any items that are on the agenda. But if you wish to provide leeway, you're welcome to. That's up to the council.
Through the chair, being that he did come in and specific, and actually you mentioned yourself, tying it to 9B. I think that would be, I think would be okay.
Okay, so I'm going to allow it because it is a specific item that he wanted to talk on, and that was on the consent agenda, and we may vote on the consent agenda all at once. So if there are any questions, anything, did you, Councilwoman?
So, hi, Nestor, how are you?
Hey, great.
So what is your proposal to us?
So I sent you an unsolicited bid where basically we can take over, and it was almost an invitation to start a conversation, but all your public notices we can have online in a special section dedicated for public notices. Anything that's an urgent notice, for example, the issue last week where police lines were down, anything in terms of all your events, basically everything you put in that little the 4-page color spread, whether it's news, departmental information, all that we can publish for you and share that to the community. And I think our proposal was pretty reasonable. We're talking about, I think the Gazette here, you had it 33 and change. We said this is for $12.50 a month, and we can handle all the public notices, emails, and things. Get into further detail, we can discuss with the city manager. But for example, if you have public notice or an urgent notices that needs to get out and you need to email right away, we can handle that. If you have something, upcoming events, we publish all the city's events. Now, many of them we cover anyways in the normal course of covering news for the community, but there's a lot of departmental stuff that we just, move on because I don't have time to cover everything. But if we came to an agreement, everything that you guys basically cover in that 4-page spread, we'd be more than happy. And there may be things that you guys may think of, or the city manager may think of this as, hey, this is something we'd like to communicate and share through MiamiSprings.com that we could cover for you. From a cost standpoint, I thought it was reasonable at $12.50 a month. That was pretty straightforward.
All right, anything else? And we do have our city, all these services. We have a city website, we have Facebook, we have a means to do this. And that is one of the things for those of us that attended the Business and Economic Task Force meeting, that was recommended is that we amp up our relationship with that. So those are services that we already have the ability to provide and do provide and immediately do that through our website. Are there any other questions?
Mayor, if I might, Mr. Thanks for being here tonight. You mentioned in your opening remarks that the actual invitation to bid was sole provider, but by virtue of the law, you don't qualify
There are certain,
because you don't do a pen and paper publication.
correct, but you guys, law does not require you to do a 4-page color spread in the newspaper.
I didn't say that.
But part of what's in the bid includes that.
I understand what your bid says, but it
No,
doesn't
I'm saying.
comply with the law relative to the bid is my
Right.
point.
Item 9B calls, that's part of the stuff that's included in there.
Okay.
So there's and we agree to this. The legal parts that must be in the paper, I can't do.
Mhm.
I don't have a paper. I don't plan on running a paper. I
Understood.
can't do that. So we're total agreement of that. I just wanted to differentiate that that 33,000, maybe about a third of that goes to those legal notices. The other 2/3 are for general advertisement. And to add one more thing that was included in the proposal I sent you guys via email was the golf course. The golf course, everybody wants to promote it more. Be more than happy to include that in the kind of services that I provide. The other thing that I want to add, while the city does have Facebook and the city does have some of these digital assets, the reality is, look, as there's not a bashing of city government, but the private sector generally is more efficient. I have a greater reach on social media. I have a greater email address. I get far more traffic than you do. So yes, you can do it, and you do a lot of this, but the reality is I'm going to have a lot greater reach.
And we do have the print that goes out once a month
Again,
right now.
you go to, there's a specificity to what the city goes to the residents relative to, and that's government and city events.
Correct.
Your site will talk about anything.
We have, from a news and event section, we cover a variety of news and things that are not city related,
Correct.
whether it's a news story
To my point.
or events. We cover a lot of things that are outside of just city government, including private events.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you, Nestor.
Thank you.
very
Appreciate the
much.
time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nestor.
Mayor, I had a question. Is it too
For-
late to ask it? I
Oh, no,
actually,
go ahead. I'm sorry, Nestor. one second.
on the agenda, for 9B, it's an amount of 35,300, but on the memo that's in the electronic agenda, it's 32,200.
Yeah,
Is
there was a
that-
discrepancy there.
Okay,
Is,
the discrepancies.
yeah, I just didn't know what the correct amount is.
32,200.
32,200. Okay.
Alright.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nestor. Okay, so there's nothing else on the open forum. And Erica, could you do me a favor and just check to make sure no one's virtually? I
Checked and
always never want to
there's nobody.
accidentally leave somebody out just because they're not here. Okay. We're moving on to approval of the council minutes for September 27th, 2021.
To the chair, motion to move, Mayor.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Best.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Councilman Best.
Aye.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez,
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes. Item 7, reports from boards and commissions. We have none. We move to item 8, agenda item 8, public hearings. We have none tonight. And then item 9, consent agenda. I do want to announce that I'd like to pull out item 9K for discussion. Are there any other items on the consent agenda that anyone wishes to separate and pull out for discussion? Okay. Not
I'm fine.
accept a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Motion to move, Mayor.
Second,
Second.
call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Best,
Aye.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Okay,
I would,
item,
through the chair, that accepting 9K.
yes, and I was going to thank you. Councilman. Now for item 9K, this is for the resurfacing of the tennis courts that I know we're going to, we do 2 of them at a time and then another 2 or 2 and 3. But one of the items we discussed during the public workshop is that when we do the resurfacing of the tennis courts, and I know the racquetball courts are on hold, we're going to be discussing that later in the year to see if we can improve the condition of the racquetball courts. Hopefully build some new ones, but if not, improve the current condition of the ones we have. The walkway from the tennis courts to the existing racquetball courts is in dire need of resurfacing. It's not a little bit, it's really, really bad. So what I'd like to, I asked William if he could talk to Omar to see if, even though we don't know yet what we're going to do with the racquetball courts, at least to repair that. It's a tripping hazard. It's very unsightly.
And I talked to Omar today and with Lazaro from Public Works. We have pictures of what's involved, and we're in the process of coming up with a solution to fix that. First thing we're gonna do is pressure. It's all asphalt that's been painted, and it's cracking all over the place, and it's got black mold. So we're gonna pressure wash it to see how it looks, and probably repaint it. But if the cracks are too to the point where they can't be fixed, and we'll just re-asphalt that whole area and paint it again, brand new on a temporary basis until we do the new racquetball.
Okay, so we wouldn't have to include that as part of the resurfacing. That's something we could do
This would be
in-house.
Separate that we can do in-house.
Okay, I know for the persons using the racquetball court, it's like they step off the tennis courts and they just enter this,
No, you're
very
totally
unkempt
correct.
path.
It looks atrocious.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's really. Okay, so then with that answered, as long as we can do that in-house and fix that, then I'll accept the motion to for item 9K.
Did the chair motion to move 9K?
Second,
Second.
any discussion? Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Best,
Aye.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you, Erica.
You're welcome.
Item, agenda item 10, old business, we have none, and then we have several items under new business. Item 11A,
This is a resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Miami Springs, Florida, establishing the city's 2022 legislative priorities and state appropriation requests and providing for an effective date. As I had mentioned in my communications to you via email, working with Representative Avila and some of his suggestions, we came up with a total of 5 projects that we're interested in. The first one is South Drive, stormwater and roadway improvement project, similar to the one we're doing on East Drive. This would be on the South Drive side. Erosion control, and so again, that's the canal banks that we ask for every year for $2 million. We're asking for, they asked us to, last year we received $250,000 for the senior center for the meals and additional programs. They asked us to up that to $300,000 this year, so we did that. The fourth project is Hook Square Pump House Replacement Project. If you're familiar with have you ever seen the one over at Hook Square? That thing is from the 1920s,
Yeah,
1930s, and they've done miracles trying to get parts for that engine when it goes down. So I think it's time for a new one. So we're asking for about $750,000 for that project. And then the final project is the Curtis Parkway War Memorial Restoration Project that Councilman Best, Councilman Vasquez are spearheading, along with other people, I guess.
Correct. Yes, sir.
But we're asking for $100,000 for that renovation. I have also Max is here from Becker. Unfortunately, Jose Fuentes, he was at the Chicago Marathon this weekend, so he couldn't be with us today. So they sent Max in case you have any specific questions.
He told me he was going to send me an email if he won.
Max, could you come up to the podium, please? I wanted to thank you and Jose and Alex again and all of your staff for the appropriations you got for us last year. In last legislative session. They're greatly appreciated
We,
and been a long time in pursuing them. It was wonderful that we finally got them through. So
We,
thank you.
we enjoy working with the city and we're looking forward to another successful session. Of course, it's, not just us by ourselves. It's, we have, Springs is very lucky to have, good representation, Representative Avila and Senator Diaz. So we're very optimistic about our prospects with regard to funding and other legislative issues this session.
And what I really appreciate is whenever I reach out to Max, Jose, or Alex about any issue, county or state, they are on top of it. They know it. It's not like, oh, well, I'm not working on that. It's really wonderful to be able to access that information, something that, obviously we can't keep up with, and that we don't have the staff in the city to keep up with it. So it's greatly appreciated. These items are in priority, or we have 1 through 5, or there's no priority to them.
No.
Okay.
No
Do we need to
priority.
prioritize them? It seems like sometimes we have in the past and sometimes we haven't.
So Representative Avila's going through the requests. We expect he's going to file all of them, and then as session progresses and we kind of learn what leadership's priorities are with regard to funding, he'll be able to better tell which projects have a better chance of getting fully funded. So the legislative process will kind of show us, which ones have the best chances, but I expect he'll file all 5.
Are important.
And I was also informed that stormwater project will be critical this year. So there's very good chances that if there's a stormwater part of the project, that it has a better chance of moving. I know Representative Avila is very strongly recommended the South Drive improvement. So that's why we included that on there. And the senior meals also has a good chance, and the war memorial, but they're in no particular order.
Okay. Anybody have questions for Max?
Need a motion?
I think your most vital function as our representative in Tallahassee, your group that is ushering us around when we go up there. We have a tendency to get lost every time we make a left or a right turn, and getting us across that bridge going from the House to the Senate and everything. You guys have done wonderful over the years, I got to tell you.
Well, we're optimistic that now hopefully that we're moving out of the COVID era slowly, that they'll bring back
Maybe
date
we'll
days.
come back
and
up.
we'll
Yeah,
be
get
able
back
to
up
have
there this year.
everybody up.
Yeah, thanks.
We're having it next year, right? Days.
I don't think they've decided yet. Yeah. So
Okay. And getting us the appointments to quickly get in and
Yeah.
meet with.
Well,
with
Mayor, we've talked over the years, at least you and I on the council, relative to maybe going up earlier, when committees are going and decisions, before decisions are like cast in concrete, because we go out there days, they pretty much know what's going to happen already.
Right.
We're just there for dog and pony kind of. Yeah. So anyway, I guess we'll discuss that going down the road.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Anything else on this item? Okay, accept the motion.
So move.
Is there a
Second.
Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Best.
Aye.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
The motion carries.
thank you all. Have a good
Thank you,
night.
Max.
Thank you.
Thanks, Max.
Okay, the next item is 11B.
The next two items are some housekeeping items for the end of the year. 11B is a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Miami Springs, Florida, providing for the fourth and final budget amendment. One, general fund capital projects from the stormwater enterprise fund budget and providing for an effective date.
Do we vote? We can vote on both of them together? No, we have to vote on each one, right?
Each one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So is there a motion for 11B?
Motion to move 11B, Mayor.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Call the vote?
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Best.
Aye.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 11C.
Is a resolution of the mayor and city Council of the City of Miami, Florida, providing for the first budget amendment to the fiscal year 21-22 general fund budget revenue and capital projects fund budget by reappropriating reserve fund balances to fund open encumbrances to September 1 and providing for an effective date. For those of you who are on council, to explain this is like we'll be doing the bank.
The rolling one. Motion to approve?
I'll second that.
Second. All right. Any discussion? Call the vote?
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Best,
Aye.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez,
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Item 11D.
Resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Miami Springs, Florida, approving a settlement agreement with Runway Partners LLC, independent litigation style, City of Miami Springs versus Runway Partners LLC, Miami-Dade County, case number 2020-019872-CA-01, providing for authorization and providing for an effective date. And our city attorney is on
Yeah.
Zoom, and I'm sure she's got some additional comments to make on this. Heidi?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the settlement agreement that we discussed during the executive session last week. It has been amended with some revisions as council requested. I think they're fairly straightforward now that you have the document in front of you. I'm happy to go over anything in detail if you would like. If you'd like me to go over some of the highlights, I'm happy to do so, but otherwise, if you'd like to make a motion to approve, we can do that as well. Are there any questions? Would you like me to clarify anything?
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
Heidi,
Yes.
was there anything in particular that they objected to?
We were able to resolve pretty much everything that council requested. There were things such as the name change that many members of council felt was important. That was agreed to with respect to if the current ownership were to reopen the hotel. So they agreed that they would change the name of the hotel if they reopen it. Otherwise, if it's a subsequent purchaser, that would be up to the subsequent purchaser if they choose to rename the hotel. We were able to resolve the issues on the lighting requirements, working with our building official. We came up with a lighting requirement that would exceed the minimum standard from the county's requirements and provide a candle lighting as per the technical requirements that the building official recommended, and they also agreed to. When I say they, I mean the Runway Partners. They agreed to the change of conditions, the items that would cause a change of condition to make that more of a collective matter, and we were able to come up with a solution. You may recall that we talked about the boutique hotel concept, so that's sort of been revised and set forth in a way that is a little more straightforward. So that's in the agreement that's before you.
Chair.
In speaking, one last thing, in speaking with the manager and police chief, I know we discussed, I think this was an item that was important to Councilman Fahet about having some sort of thresholds for enforcement. So we didn't want to, we feel that the agreement provides sufficient safeguards that will allow the hotel to reopen if they choose to reopen. There's no guarantee that they will, but the safeguards that are in place run from everything that was required by the court's order that was approved over a year ago, and which ultimately closed down the hotel. So this agreement includes all of those provisions as well as more. So we felt that those thresholds, those safeguards that are in place in the agreement are sufficient. So we didn't put in anything such as X number of calls is going to result in this type of action. And when I say calls, I mean police calls. We didn't feel that that was necessarily the best public policy to discourage people from making calls to the police in emergency situations, of course. So that was something that we dealt with. And we also have a provision in the agreement that allows us to obtain records to provide proof of compliance with the agreement. So that was something that we were able to agree upon. So I think overall, the city, between the manager, the chief, myself, working with the Runways Council, we were able to mutually agree on all of these terms. The runway has already, in anticipation that council will approve this agreement this evening, they have already signed the agreement, and we have that. So if the council agrees this evening, we will execute the agreement on our side, and it will be presented to the circuit court judge for her approval. Hopefully, I think that would be happening within the next week, and the case would be dismissed, and the court would retain jurisdiction to enforce the settlement agreement. As an aside, one of the items that we talked about was a contribution to the city's police department, which is really intended to, it's intended to reimburse the police department for some of the investigative costs that they've incurred in addressing this property. It's certainly not everything, I'm sure, from a cost perspective, but it's certainly an amount that we felt was appropriate in light of the circumstances. So we were able to agree on an increased amount from what was previously discussed. So that donation or contribution will be made within the next, I think it's 30 days. Are there any other questions?
Heidi,
Yes.
I don't know that, well, you mentioned if we agree tonight, this goes to the judge, that could take a week and so forth and so on. Was there any sense from your conversations with the runway group when they might have a decision about as to which way they're going? Whether they are, in the next month, the next 2 months, 3 months, whether they're going to sell or move to open up in some fashion. I'm just wondering if there was any conversation about that kind of time frame.
So there's no specific time frame to answer your question directly. I like to answer the question directly and then give you an explanation. We did discuss several times, and as I explained to the council in session, we have gotten the impression throughout all of our conversations with the runway that their ultimate intent is to sell the property. And this settlement agreement is one step in their ability to market this property effectively in a way that will allow them to address any concerns that prospective purchasers may have as they do their own due diligence and see that the property is obviously shut down, it's been closed down, it's a public record that the property is shut down and the reasons why. So this was the way that we have received the information is such that their intent is not necessarily to reopen. The provisions in this agreement that relate to the runway reopening the hotel themselves are really more of a contingency that they don't necessarily anticipate occurring. But obviously, as lawyers, we plan for those contingencies and our clients expect us to. So that's the reason for all of those provisions that relate to a reopening of the hotel. but our sense is that once this is resolved, by utilizing the settlement agreement and dismissing, having the settlement approved by the court and the case dismissed, subsequently to that, that the runway will list this property for sale, or auction, or find some sort of buyer who will take over, and we'll see what might happen at that point.
Thank you. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Heidi, thank you for your work on this. A point of clarification. I know that if the Runway Partners were to open the hotel again for whatever time, they have to have a security company that's approved by the chief and have an unarmed security guard at the premises for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's going forward. If a purchaser purchases the property with the intent to open it again as a hotel, they also have to have an unarmed security guard 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, but that's only for 1 year?
That's correct. So what we agreed on was, if you stated it perfectly. If the runway themselves reopens the hotel, one of the conditions out of many is that they provide the unarmed security guard for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. For a
For as
purchaser,
long as they're operating, correct? If the Runway Partners open it again as a hotel, they'll have to have the security guard for as long as they continue to operate as a hotel, correct?
correct. We did provide that the city would have a say. We would mutually agree on which company that would be. So we will have some input on that. As far as the timeframe for that, it's open-ended. However, we did agree that the city and the runway, and this is in section 2D as in David of the agreement, we agree that the city could authorize a waiver of any of the operating requirements or the purchaser requirements, subject to approval, of course, by the city manager and the city attorney. So I think the intent there is, and again, we don't necessarily anticipate for this to be the case because the runway intends to sell the property. But should the runway reopen the hotel and 2 or 3 years from now, the need for a security guard were to change, then we would be able to revisit that provision. But
And if they were a purchaser and operator, then they would only have to comply with that for 1 year though, correct?
correct, a new purchaser, which again is defined in the agreement as it would be someone unrelated to the runway, arm's length transaction, someone completely new. So, you know, at some point you don't want to necessarily make the agreement to such a point that you're discouraging future purchasers and sort of punishing them for their predecessors' actions. So that was the compromise on that.
But a 1 year buffer for a new purchaser, I think would be good just to help kind of set the tone.
Agreed.
Thank you, Heidi.
Any other questions?
No.
Heidi, I just wanted to thank you, Eric, and your whole firm for the months, and our police chief and staff, our city manager and staff for the months of working on this agreement for our community, for the betterment of our community. It's greatly appreciated. So thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve 11D.
I'll second.
Any discussion, any more discussion? Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Best,
Aye.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay. Item 11E.
Yes, this is a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Miami Springs, Florida, approving the purchase of a vehicle from Duval Ford LLC, an amount not to exceed $45,154, utilizing the terms and conditions of the Florida Sheriff's Association contract pursuant to section 3111E5 of the city code, providing for implementation and providing for an effective date.
Like to, through the chair, I'd like to thank the administration and the police department in particular for the backup information on this on our dais tonight. With that, I'd like to make a motion to move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Best,
Aye.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 11F. Tammy, are you gonna? Or you want me to read it? Consideration of the Board of Parks and Parkways recommendation for nominating the Yard of the Month Awards for October, November, and December. This is giving them the approval to nominate. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
Is there a motion?
Motion to move,
So
Mayor.
moved.
Second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Any discussion? Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Best.
Aye.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, item 12A, under other business, item 12A is a vote of confidence for our city manager as required by our charter.
My favorite time of the year.
Can I go first?
Yes, of course.
I asked that for specifically because I usually spend 5 minutes patronizing him. I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm just going to say, if we don't do this, we're damn fools. This guy, the years I've been up here, I've not seen a city run as smooth as it has under the Alonso administration, and I'd like to thank him for it. And anytime anything comes up, he's always on top of it. He's always on the phone to each and every one of us, either by media or by personal telephone call. And that does not exclude Saturday and Sundays, by the way, or holidays. I think it's unprecedented. I think we're dearly blessed to have him, and he has my ultimate vote of confidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else?
Yes.
Anything?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, Vice
Councilman.
Mayor, you.
It's
Vice
okay.
Mayor,
It's
Vice
okay.
Mayor Bravo, go
Yeah.
ahead.
I express the same sentiments that Bob Best has, Councilman Best. William, I've known him since before council on personal issues, personal matters, good or bad. He's been very supportive. He's a very educated man, and I'd be blessed and glad to have him back part of our council and administration. He gave me a welcoming about, coming on board. He guided me questions, and I honestly have the confidence to serve my city. Slightly because you've made that impact and in guiding me, as well as our city attorney and Tammy. Everybody's been very welcome, but that comes above from good leadership from the top. It comes from the top and ripples to the bottom. So you do have my vote of confidence.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Well, I can tell you that these first 6 months on council have been very eventful and eye-opening, and I appreciate William's hand on the till and management style. I've indicated before in council, I've been an administrator in large organizations, and just because the city of Miami Springs is relatively smaller does not make it any less complex to manage. And I've seen nothing but excellent work from William and his staff, by the way. And that's also a reflection of leadership. Not only his staff, but all the department heads, the ones that I've had the opportunity to engage with. And I've called them on numerous occasions on Saturday and Sundays, asking for guidance and questions. So I absolutely would support without question or hesitation of this vote of confidence.
Mayor. So, yeah, I mean, just to underscore what everybody's said, I think that William is an outstanding administrator, a wonderful finance manager, the most knowledgeable person in the city, always has answers to all questions. He keeps us informed. I know that on the political side, you know, prior to running, I would come to all the meetings and I saw everything that the city did. And I've talked to other people as they were running or thinking about running, and people would always talk about like, oh, there has to be, you know, I think people think that you got to like blow up the system and run on a platform of change and how everything is wrong. And I always kind of like caution people like, you have no idea just how much good work happens in this city and the people that are just work. I mean, you know, you don't have to be sick to get better. You could always have, you know, ideas and strive to be better. But I think that the work that's done here in this city is just remarkable, and it's a credit to William and his staff and his leadership. So thank you, William.
And I'll just finalize it with just saying the best term that I can think of describing how I feel about William is he has his finger on the pulse of everything in the city. There's nothing that you can ask him that he either doesn't know about, or he will get back to you within 15 minutes with the details, which is very helpful, very impressive. We speak on the phone practically every day, and sometimes numerous times a day. And you know, by email and text, there's a lot going on in the city, a lot going on behind the scenes that he manages very, very well with the excellent staff that we have in Miami Springs. We're really blessed to have him and the staff that reports to him. They're a very well fine-tuned machine, and our city's very blessed to have them all. So William, I apologize to him a lot on weekends, saying, please tell your wife I'm sorry. Because I'm calling him we're on the phone for an hour or two about whatever. So thank you for the work you do. You are greatly appreciated. And also, so is the assistant city manager, because we don't get a chance to say that, but Tammy, you're awesome behind the scenes. I know you're handling so much, taking a lot of things off William's plate. And we really, really appreciate it. You're involved with so many things throughout the city. So it also goes for you.
Thank you all for the kind words, but as has been mentioned here, I couldn't do it all by myself. I have great staff, starting with Tammy. Every department head that I have is a great asset to the city, and you know, the work they do makes me look good, but it's not a one-man show. It's a team effort, and I want to thank all of my department heads, starting with Tammy, with Omar, with Lazaro, the chief, Tammy Key at the senior center, Paul Adele at the golf course, Ulysses in building department. You know, it's a great team effort, and I'm blessed to have a great staff. So thank you anyway for the kind words.
To the chair, before he gets any more emotional, like to make the honor of giving him a vote of confidence, making the first motion.
I second that.
All right. Any discussion? Any more discussion? Okay. Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Best,
Aye.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez,
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And thank you, Tammy, and all your staff. Like you said, the department directors and all the staff leading up to them. I know we don't say it enough on council. We're asking questions and, you know, and asking for things to get done. And I'm sure we never say it enough, how much we appreciate the work they all do. Okay, so the next agenda item is 12B, consideration for canceling the city council meetings for November 22nd, which is the Monday right before Thanksgiving, and then December 27th, which is the Monday right after Christmas. And traditionally, we've always done that. We've just had one meeting in November and one in December. So I'll accept the motion.
Through the chair, somebody asked me the other day whether we have a second meeting in November and a second meeting in December. I said, typically not. So with that, I make a motion that we do the same thing.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Best,
Aye.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez,
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Agenda item 12C, and this is a request by me to discuss, and it says on here proposed ordinance, but what I really, we already have an ordinance in place that businesses have to apply for a business license in order to operate in the city of Miami Springs. So what I'm really asking for is directing our city attorney and our city administrators, William and his staff, to pursue any and all legal actions against businesses that are violating their business license. If you're licensed to, if you've applied for a license to do a certain work in your building, and that's what is supposed to be happening there, you can't just automatically decide, well, you know what, instead of doing this, I'm going to run something else in this building. It has to, you have to get a new occupational license, request for it. It has to be approved by the city. And you can see that with a lot of businesses, the variety of different buildings that we have here in the city that we've approved for a certain occupation or a certain license. We just want to make sure that that's what's happening in them. It shouldn't come to us as a surprise that that's not what they're doing in there. There's something else. So this is just consensus from the staff, from the city council, to direct them to pursue this. And also pursue any entity that fails to renew its business license, follow up on that, and just be enforce the codes on this so that we're very sure of what is happening or what is supposed to be happening inside each business in our city.
You have my consensus, Mayor.
Through the chair, you're looking for consensus?
Yes.
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 Yes, absolutely.
Is that, I don't need a vote on that, right,
No.
Heidi? This is just.
I don't think so.
Correct, ma'am. We have the direction.
Okay.
We'll investigate, and I think a lot of this is something that the code enforcement department will be doing as part of, at this time of year, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the process, businesses are required to pay for and submit or obtain their business tax receipt renewal. Many people know it as the occupational license, but that process is underway, and if it hasn't occurred by October 1st, then the city will be issuing notices accordingly. And of course, the other half of the direction that I'm hearing is to the extent that businesses are operating more than the business that they're authorized to operate pursuant to their license, we will take the appropriate enforcement action.
Okay, thank you so much. And this comes in part with, it's related to the operation cleanup of 36th Street. If a business is licensed to do something, that's what should be happening in that business and nothing else. Okay, so let's move to the next agenda item, which is a request by Vice Mayor Bravo to discuss a proposed ordinance.
Thank you. So I'm going to start by reading my memorandum, and then we can get into the PowerPoint that I provided to Erica, and then we'll take it from there and we can have a discussion. So my recommendation is a request to council to adopt an ordinance for the prohibition of feeding the wildlife and fowl of any kind, songbirds excluded with restrictions, and we'll get to that further along. The legislative intent to prohibit citizens from intentionally or knowingly feeding or attracting the wildlife within city limits, to prohibit feeding and taming of unconfined wildlife on any private property, city property, or any property operated by the city of Miami Springs, as to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of both humans, domestic animals, and wildlife, and to provide warning and impose penalties for failure to comply. To provide protection from nuisances caused by wildlife and fowl of any kind that disturb the peace, promote unsanitary conditions or disease transmission, or interfere with the ability of people to enjoy their yards and the outdoors. I provided the definitions for feed, wildlife, and fowl. The enforcement department, I just suggested based on other ordinance or other ordinances that I saw from other cities. It's either the code compliance department or the police department, or they're just doing like a joint effort. Reason. The issue has been a growing concern for some time now amongst residents. With this ordinance, we enable to provide residents some protection from nuisances caused by citizens, whether local or not, from feeding the wildlife. and fowl of any kind that disturb the peace, promote unsanitary conditions, disease transmission, or interfere with the ability of people to enjoy a good quality of life, with a common and basic solution. The city of Miami Springs is considered a bird sanctuary and wildlife-friendly environment. It's important we also play a vital role in to promote healthy biodiversity within the city. As mentioned by our ecology board, Bound by Beauty, which promotes positive ways to interact with nature. While feeding the wildlife may seem like an enjoyable way to connect with nature, wildlife feeding has been identified as a practice that can lure animals onto neighboring private properties, contributing to unwanted property damage and attract predatory wildlife to locations where their prey congregates around feeding sites established by people. Wildlife that depends on a feeder or a full food bowl will often take the easy route despite ample natural food sources being available and will walk from house to house in search of the same. Although it might seem harmless harmless and cute to feed a squirrel at the park bench or a duck at the local waterways, these activities can lead to increased habituation and unwanted behavior, causing a negative effect on the quality of life for residents and city of Miami Springs. There are other ways to positively interact with wildlife through natural resources that do not interfere with their ability to survive on their own. They do not need food from humans to survive. I provided there why not to feed the wildlife and fowl, but also ways to create a safe biodiversity in the city for birds and wildlife. But if you notice on the ordinance, I did exclude with restriction the songbirds because we are a city, we are a bird sanctuary, and I like to see birds. I see them all the time in a beautiful natural way. But I didn't want to take away the ability of our residents feeding our birds either, but just maybe in a more tactful and more effective way. I provided exhibits on ordinances that I found within Miami Springs, Coral Gables, Miami Beach, Edgewater, City of Miami, Palmetto Bay, Miami-Dade, Margate, and Bound by Beauty. I attached the last exhibit to that. I provided the pamphlet that was brought up by the ecology board. So if any residents wanted to see it, I just created one less step so they could just go ahead and click on our agenda, and they have the whole brochure there. Then I have a final little excerpt that says the preservation of biodiversity is not just a job for governments, international and non-government organizations, the private sector, and each and every individual have a role to play in changing entrenched outlooks and ending destructive behavior patterns. Okay. The ordinances are there. I just want to go ahead and go through the PowerPoint. And these ordinances are based on different cities and based on their situation and the problems that they're having. For quite some time now, I know that the ducks have been a big issue. But if we're gonna go ahead and approach the duck issue, I think we should just go ahead and approach, the issue in general and see what is the better outcome for our city in respects to this, because we don't really have something that we can assure we're resident. We've tried informing our residents through our website, providing signs and this and that, but it's not working. So unfortunately, I think we have to take a more aggressive approach to this, because our future as well as theirs, we depend on it together. Erica, do you have it's a really great brochure. I don't know if you guys took a look at it. It's beautiful. Do you want the USB again, Eric, or no? Okay, okay. If it's not working, I did print out a copy of it and I could just share it with the council members on the
That'd
days.
be fine, my Vice Mayor. That'd be fine.
Okay,
I'd like to have one.
I have really good videos, but I can share that with you. It's okay. So basically what you're gonna see in there are, well, it's, the first one is a video which shows, wait, let me see if I have it here. My email wasn't working earlier.
There it is.
Okay, perfect. We got it up with fun,
I'll just read it.
but I need it. That's okay. Well, actually, you know what, here, I'll just look at the screen, it's fine. Okay, so I'm not a, a fancy media person. I was just putting something together, something informative enough just to get a perspective and an idea of how we can make things better, and just to educate ourselves. So Erica, if you just click on that link above, we can start with that on the first one. You can click there. And then you scroll a little bit down, it should start. I was trying to embed it, but it didn't allow me. Hopefully they'll be able to hear it. Okay. I don't know if the sound is on. Can we get the mic for handheld?
If you want to enjoy this little connection feature, here are some healthy and responsible snack tips for your back. First, buy the right feeder. Find a feeder that is best to use are ones, they're called tube feeders. The birds land on perches along the side and take the seed out. And that restricts the type of birds that will feed on them to some of the smaller birds. Quality or other animals can be unhealthy. Sunflower seed is probably the best all around seed. Water bird mixes.
Okay, so that's one. Then going on to the next slide is just some examples. of how birds can become a little bit of a nuisance to neighboring properties. Should you want to feed the birds, and it's okay to feed the birds, but maybe put in there some verbiage on where you should maybe perhaps put your bird feeders, where it would make sense, where you can actually enjoy them and see them. The next slide. Okay, so here we have the common grackle that I saw around town. We also have bread being fed to the birds, which should not be fed to the birds. We also have well, in my next slide, we'll get into, require like best recommended bird feeders versus bird feeders maybe you shouldn't use. And then this is just a video clip of how it can become a little bit of a problem should you maybe not, switch it up and put it where maybe it should be on your property. So you can click enter if you want, Erica. Enter? Yeah, it should go off. Yep. It's fine. Go to the next one. It said what? That it's not available? Oh, okay. So recommended bird feeders they're quite pretty, and they actually help the birds actually feed and not help predators get to them. We don't want to feed predators. We want to feed the birds, because if you feed predators at the same time that you're feeding birds, they're going to eat your birds. And I have a perfect example of that in a future video that I'm going to show you now. So those are some recommended bird feeders that you should be using to feed all of our songbirds and just birds in general, just keeping it bird friendly. We don't really want to attract squirrels or rodents. Rats love to eat at the bottom of the floor there, but these are recommended. Let's go to the next slide. These are some samples of how not to feed birds. So just trays and just open bowl feeding. Really just you start feeding other critters and other predators. And also the congregation of birds, predators start learning their feeding habits and at what times of the day. So they'll go at specific times, and you'll have predators, instead of being, preying at night when they typically prey at night, they learn habits as well, and they'll go and they'll feed off the birds themselves. And then right here to the right hand side, it's not recommended you water or keep out water for the birds unless you're continuously changing it, because it can start creating parasites, which will then sicken the birds. And then we have the transmission of the diseases, and then you have congregating birds, healthy and not so healthy, and you're getting the healthy and infected. Typically, by nature, healthy and non-healthy stay apart. Okay. I learned a lot while doing this. So it was pretty interesting. Next slide. If you click enter right there, it's a video from a wildlife biologist that I found very informative. If you click enter, it won't go. Okay, click next. It might go. Okay, it didn't work, but that's a very good video to watch. Here are just some samples around the city. I went, driving around and just taking snapshots, and I found it very disturbing to see these types of things. Apparently this person hands out food to her cats, but she doesn't pick up the bowls afterwards. It's not recommended you leave food outside in your yard like that, or just, remove your waste, because you're going to attract animals of all sorts. There's a duck right behind one of those bowls you can't see. And there's also a bowl called from the material, I think it's polyurethane. I'm not sure what type of plastic it is, but it's really harmful for any animals to feed. It's actually illegal. I'll send you guys the information later. I didn't write it there. Click next. Here's another snapshot off this offset of this property. Hopefully you can see the video on this one that I'm gonna play. It was pretty disturbing to see what I saw. They're just hanging out. These are two separate groups of ducks. They're not the same ducks. Keep going. Next. Here, just within the city, I think the right side was Raven. They're just scavenging around trying to look for food. And the one on the left was on Pinecrest. Just why they're walking to someone's backyard, I don't know. Here are there's like about two. I just took a picture of one, but we have maybe about what, 4 tiki huts, four?
Yeah.
Four?
or five.
So out of the 4, I managed to snap this one. This one specifically has this issue where ducks are coming here, they're eating, and obviously they're leaving, but look what they leave behind. And none of the other tiki huts, mind you, it's on the waterway, none of the other tiki huts have the same issues. So I know that this is a learned behavior. Somebody's going there. It's a targeted tiki. They know where to go to get fed. And these tiki huts are either granted to us or gifted to us for the use of us to use as an enjoyment, a picnic option or whatnot. And we can't really use that like that. This is a couple more pictures of different homes. We have ducks on top of the roof. A neighbor wakes up in the morning and, you know, on the bottom left, it's all the duck feces, which they've had to, you know, remove many times, causing, you know, property damage to the cars. And I think it's self-explanatory what we're seeing here. We have at the bottom right, they start just sleeping out on. It's funny because they won't hang out or sleep at the feeder's house. They'll go ahead and go next door and hang out there, which is the funniest thing. Okay, now I hope we can play this video because this was is there any way that we can fix that? Because this was really disturbing in this video. And it also shows the predatory act where you see a cat come and you see a bird come, and then the cat forgets about the ducks or the food and goes and leaps straight to the birds. It was like the perfect little cycle there. Okay. Anyways, so that arrow is pointing to, I guess, the neighboring homeowner, and they've literally come out and thrown a huge ordeal of food on the floor. Once that happens, on the right hand side comes a cat, and then right after that cat comes a dove straight to the street. So by default, birds are not, they're not ground feeders. They feed way above the ground. Actually, the recommendation for a bird feeder is no less than 6 feet above ground. So then I just wanted you to see that because it was perfect. So then the cat leaps to try and get the bird many times. And by default, on a normal situation, fight or flight, the bird would typically just fly away, not come back. But they've gotten into this competitive ordeal of trying to feed off of the same areas, which I get it, but he's scared of the cat, but it's just, that's the video that you need to see. I'm going to send it all to you I'll send it to William so you could share it, because it was really sad and disturbing to see the amount of food that was thrown. It looked like he was in a farm just throwing out corn or something. It was crazy. Go to the next slide. This is another lady that comes every morning. I don't know where she's from. That's another video. She has little bowls under this ficus hedge, and there's water. So this person comes, feeds them every day, puts water. Now, is the water changed every day? I don't know. Again, it creates an unsanitary condition, and everybody around there is just feeling it. Mind you, this is by Fairhaven. I think this was by Fairhaven. Next slide. Another feeder, non-local. I guess she's either, I don't know if she's on the clock, off the clock, what is it? Yeah, I don't know what the case is, but you know, she doesn't live here and she's feeding feeding on someone else's property. I don't think that's a nice thing to do. This is the Create Your Own Wildlife Sanctuary pamphlet, Bound by Beauty. If you click on the image, it'll take you to the website, which was provided by the Ecology Board. It was very informative. I signed up, so I'm now getting little newsletters. I think it's very beautiful and inspiring. So if there's a specific type of bird or a species that you want to attract to your yard that you like, they show you ways to plant to attract the cardinal, a nightingale or an ibis or whatever it is. But also you want to do things where it's not going to become a problem for anybody else. Everybody wants the same enjoyment. And I think there was another, And that was just the same excerpt that I used at the end of the agenda. So I just really wanted to see what we can do, because this is just becoming a problem. And see what we can do to help our residents, because one of our, believe it or not, when I was campaigning, a big ordeal was the ducks. But I think that we should take this approach on the overall approach, to save our wildlife too. I mean, we're not making it easier for them. They make the world go round, right? So if we're teaching them unwanted and unnatural behaviors, where does that leave us in the future if we take this at a bulk approach into many, many years to come? And we're so prioritized about the water level and everything, but we've kind of forgotten about the actual animals as well. So open for discussion.
Mayor?
Yeah, excuse
Oh,
me.
go
One
ahead.
second. Councilman Best.
I'd
you
like
wanted
to,
say something?
I'd like to respond through the chair.
Yes.
This. First of all, thanks. I just learned quite a bit from what you just put up for us. And far be it from me to try and affect a biome or an ecosystem. I'm not qualified. Although we've had animals all our lives, we too have that problem on Ibis Avenue, have had for a while. The problem is it's really not the animals who are at fault. I think you're quite right in suggesting that it is the people who affect the situation and feed them, because most folks that feed animals haven't the slightest idea what they're doing in terms of what is good for an animal and what is not good for an animal. And you're quite right in making that point. You're familiar with Lainey Silver and the strays, caring for the strays and stuff. She goes out and feeds these feral colonies of cats that don't have a home. There's various points all over the city, and she goes out at like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning and feeds these animals. But she knows what she's feeding them. So she performs actually quite a valuable service, and spays them when she can too. Spays or neuters. But the other thing is with these ducks. I think that and the we call them lizards or iguanas. Thank you. Didn't think of the term. The iguanas. I think that right now, and I know we've had other species like hawks. We had that a couple of years ago where that was a big problem. They were like attacking people walking on the sidewalks and stuff. I don't think anybody'd feed a hawk, but
You're not going for that.
yeah, you're gonna get the intermix of the different animals, and that's nature. So I don't know how we can intervene here, other than to educate people, like you just attempted to educate us. And you succeeded in educating me in some areas. But I know that what we have in the books right now in the Code of Ordinances addresses this to an extent, also relative to euthanizing and killing them or having them removed in some manner. The county has a whole laundry list of things on how to achieve that in relative to an epidemic, I suppose. But the onesies and twosies, I think most people in this town have just kind of let it go, and it goes away on its own. It might come back, but it'll go away. There's a lot of people in Miami Springs that seem to think that feeding these wild animals or wild fowl, etc., is a good thing to do. It's a humane thing to do. They're convinced of that, and you're going to play hell convincing them that they're wrong. So how we get there is probably our next rung on the ladder to climb. But thank you for your presentation. I learned something.
You're welcome.
Councilman Cahat?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so I'm all in favor for, and I think there's a precedent in looking at other city ordinances. Thank you, Vice Mayor Bravo, for your presentation. I think there's a precedence for ordinances to prohibit feeding wildlife. I think just exclusive of the ducks, you don't want wildlife to naturally want to come to people. You want them to kind of be afraid and kind of keep a distance. So it's never a good thing. And anybody who lives in a park or any environmental area will tell you that feeding animals just in the long run is a detriment to them. I'm not sure. So I'm all in favor of that. It doesn't seem like we have something like that. It begs the question of how to enforce it. But I would be in favor of it just because I think it's what's best for the animals. I don't know that to what extent it's going to curtail the nuisance. I know that if you live in certain parts of Arroyo Point Siena, if you live like a Lake Drive and Morningside and behind the nursing home, there are some areas where it is a huge nuisance, obviously on Canal Street. I would just point out that Muscovy ducks are considered by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission an invasive species. They are not from around here. They've only been here for a finite amount of time. And if you read up on them, they carry diseases that native species that from here do not have. And if they catch it, that could be detrimental to the native species. So I think that trying to curtail the feeding of them by creating an ordinance is a good first start. But I'm sure that if you talk to some people that have had it in terms of the nuisance that all of these ducks, when left unchecked, provide, I think they would tell you that maybe considering some options for how to remove or relocate some of these, because again, they are an invasive species to South Florida. They're not supposed to be here, and they just endanger native species.
Councilman
Chair?
Vasquez.
Yes. First of all, thank you, Vice Mayor Bravo, for the presentation. It's pretty comprehensive, and I agree. Excuse me. I agree that we need to take some measures. That there were a couple of the things that you showed on the slide that were particularly egregious, of individuals just flopping food and someone putting food on someone else's property. That's crazy. And also I know that there are certain people like to give bread, which is not the best thing for ducks or any. So we've got there's a variety of things here. I think that need to be addressed and needs to be pretty comprehensive, whether it's species that are invasive and we need to take measures of that, but also teaching folks, as Bob said, just watching this, you learn things that you didn't know. On my little street on De Leon Drive, we've got a couple of varieties of ducks. Now, I don't know if any of them are invasive species or not. They don't bother me, but they're usually in the pond, except when they come out to find food and or puddles of water. They like to bathe in the puddles of water. Other than that, I haven't had any particular, birds or on my roof or anything like that. I don't know anyone that has in my immediate area, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And it is a problem. So I would support, taking measures and accompanying with an educational piece. I think more folks need to understand. I think most people feel it's a humanitarian thing to do. It's like taking care of other animals and wildlife because we share the planet and we share the neighborhood with them. But I don't think most people know the depth of the problem, as you pointed it out, Vice Mayor. So I think that was a good job. A lot of work, I'm sure, went into putting us together. So
Thank you.
Okay.
To the chair, just one last thing.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I did also provide, there was 3 other council meetings back on 2010, 2013, and 2019 in reference to the same issues. And the last one, council did give consensus to come up with something, but I don't think anything came back. So
What happened at that meeting is we discussed it and decided that, and my recollection of it was we discussed, which is what I was going to bring up. When we're talking about wildlife, really, and thank you, Vice Mayor Bravo, for the presentation you made. I know you put a lot of effort into it, and you did a great job. I think Councilman Best made a very good point. He learned a lot from what you were saying, and I I believe this is where this should go, is an educational and awareness. I don't think that we want to make an ordinance specifying what wildlife and what can't. I don't even know what a songbird is. So if someone has a bird feeder, am I going to stand out there and, and monitor which birds come and shoo others away? It's just impossible. Plus, I don't want to regulate what someone can and can't feed in their backyard. Now, some of the issues that you brought up of someone coming to a stranger's yard and feeding, we have an ordinance in place for that. You call the police. That's throwing debris in your yard. So the person should call the police, because they're, throwing waste food or whatever in my yard. Do we really want to tell people that you have to buy a certain kind of bird feeder? That when they go on Amazon, they're going to be looking and, deciding because this bird feeder attracts this and this bird feeder. I think these are very personal decisions. Plus we have Lainey Silver and her group go out and feed the community cats, feral cats, the community cats in our neighborhood. They're feral cats. They've been doing this for years. Are we all of a sudden going to tell them that you can't do this anymore? This is a really big project that they do, and they do. It seems like they're just feeding them, but actually what they're doing is they're catching them, they're neutering them, and they're releasing them back into the environment. And since they've been neutered, they will just die out. So some of the other things, and I think that again, what Councilman Best and I think what Councilman Fahet and Councilman Vesquez said is it's very informative. We need to do a good job of awareness, of letting people know why you shouldn't feed wildlife, what problems it causes. I was yesterday when I parked on Canal Street to go to Crackers, there's a sign there, and we have a sign there saying, please don't feed the wildlife. And it says, the information why. At the tiki huts, we have signs, I believe, along the canal saying, please don't feed the wildlife. Okay, then that's something that we should have, because I know I took a picture of the one on Canal Street because I knew this was on the agenda, and I can show it to you yesterday, and it's right in front of Crackers. It's a, it doesn't just say, please do not feed the wildlife. It goes into explanation of why, probably, I don't know, 10 bullet points. So perhaps what we need to do is do a campaign before we create another ordinance, which this is the thing with the ordinance is, are we really going to tax our police and our code enforcement, our resources, deplete our resources to respond to someone's bird feeder or to respond to someone who is feeding ducks? I think we can do a better job by, even when you saw the people feeding the ducks, to going up to them and saying, please don't feed the ducks. This is, it causes a lot of problems, and talking to them, to have our police and code enforcement going out and giving a ticket to a grandparent who is feeding the ducks with their grandkid. If it's a real problem, and I'm not aware of, I know you said, it's not working. I'm not getting any complaints about that. Occasionally, yes, I see some ducks going across the street, and I see that occasionally I've seen that it looks like somebody's been feeding them, but it certainly isn't a pervasive issue throughout our city. So I believe, I'm not saying it's not an important one by any means. What I'm saying is that I believe that a better way to do this, and through the Gazette, through the monthly, when we send out the monthly newsletter, we can do a half page or a full page awareness of very informative, the information that you provided, and get that across to residents. And I think that this is the kind of information that, I don't want to use the word peer pressure because it sounds like something, but just by all of us being attuned to it, it discourages that behavior. Now, there's always going to be one or two individuals, like anything else, that, are going to be a problem with this. And even if we had an ordinance, we're going to be sending police to keep dealing with this one individual. So I'm wondering, and let me just finish, while you were talking, I was putting some, making some notes on here. and even with the ordinance of the songbirds, I just don't even know what that means. We
Oh,
are a bird sanctuary, but we're also, we have biodiversity, and I'm all for bird sanctuary. In fact, when we had Lainey Silver speak to us about removing the number, and I don't think perhaps Councilman Fahet was on the council then, about removing the number of cats and dogs that any resident could have. And this was something recently, it probably came up
Yeah.
in this past fall.
Yes,
And that's a group, and you know how many emails we got, and you know, of residents who want us to allow that there's no limit on the number of cats and dogs that you can have in your house. And one of the issues that I brought up to Lainey is, you know, the birds, the cats do go after, they hunt birds not for food, they hunt them for fun. You know, it's if they can catch one, they very often kill it and they bring it to your door. And I had one in front of my door. the
It's
other day.
it's a present.
It's a present.
It's a
Yes,
present.
exactly. They do it for fun. So there's just so much here, even with butterflies, with butterfly feeders. I think that I would like for us, and I think the Ecology Board would be a great one to do this. They've already started doing that, but perhaps this is a perfect thing. We talk about the council directing work toward the boards. And this would be a perfect one, I think, to direct to the Ecology Board to ask them to amp up their campaign on finding that mix of, you know, just enjoying the wildlife that's around us, but, you know, not encouraging bad habits, protecting the wildlife that's around us, and not stepping on anyone's toes. I can't imagine, you know, telling somebody that you have a bird feeder in your backyard, and you know that's not the right kind of bird feeder, or you shouldn't have a bird feeder because that kind of bird feeder can bring whatever, and you have to buy this kind of bird feeder. It is true that we have raccoons in here. You know, raccoons are here and opossums and all because they belong here too. I mean, we basically live in the Everglades. You know,
Used to be.
Miami Springs is along the Miami River. We're along the Miami River, and it leads to the Everglades. We have alligators here. I think anyone knows not to feed an alligator, but we do have alligators that come in from the swamps, and so they're trying to live with us. They don't know, you know, they just are trying to find a way to survive here too. And I think that's one of the beauties of our community is that we try to enjoy the wildlife around us.
I was Mayor. I was coming off my street the other day down by the high school, by the football field. Made a right going south on Lenape, and I'm going along about maybe 20, 30 yards in front of me. This animal dashes across the street, came right to the edge at first, and then heard me coming and sped up. It was the size of a medium-sized dog, but it had a tail on it like this.
Oh.
It was a fox.
A fox.
I have never seen a fox that big in my life. And it went in, it worked its way through the fence there at the clay pit. And as quick as I could say, Jack Frost, he was up and into that clay pit. In the morning. It was in the morning. Yeah. Unbelievable.
So I'm not, and I know I looked at a few of these ordinances that you were saying from some of the cities, but I think it was Miami Beach. Their ordinances just don't feed the pigeons. And that's
Right,
in a park setting. It's not like they have an ordinance about not feeding wildlife. And I don't remember if that's the one I looked at that you had put, but it was just not feeding pigeons when you're like in a park or something, but it certainly wasn't, you know, a comprehensive one. So
To the chair.
I
When you're
think
done.
that, and I just wanted to give me one moment because you were talking a lot, so I was making notes. So I want to make sure I'm
problem.
covering the comments that I wrote down while you were giving your presentation, which again was very good. Oh, bird baths. Yes, bird baths get filthy, but are we going to prohibit someone from having a bird bath in their yard? I mean, they're decorative and they're fun, and or that, you know, are we going to have somebody call code enforcement and, you know, on a neighbor that their bird bath is dirty and it's, you know, it has bird feces in it. So I just think this is really, really getting into the weeds. My big concern is with the groups of residents that are doing a really good job of trying to help our wildlife, like the cats organization. And, an ordinance, I believe, is just we have very limited resources. And I think we need to think twice about whether we really want to use up the resources of our police and code enforcement for these,
I'll tell you
minor
what,
issues.
I think what might help and eradicate this along to the vice mayor's presentation here. And we've actually, you cited both of those things. One is to steer it to the ecology board to get their feedback. The other is eventually and ultimately to educate the public. And so perhaps out of those two venues comes a presentation that we could send to every household, like a mailer to educate every household. Now, I think that would make a lot of sense. And a lot of the material you have here, Vice Mayor, should be included in that. I don't know how, you don't have to make it like this, but maybe a couple pages, and people will read that stuff if it comes to them.
Can I make
The
a
chair.
quick distinction, Mayor, and then you can kind of close it because I know you.
Go ahead, because
All right.
the vice
Okay.
mayor wanted to make some comments while I was talking.
Okay, I'm not trying to get too technical. Maybe I should have done an ordinance on the waterfowl. Okay, I don't want to stop feeding birds. That's not the ordinance that I'm trying to propose. Like Bob Best said, maybe, an educational, informational session on if you want to feed birds, feed them right. Because if you don't feed them right, you're not protecting them. Okay, I don't want to go into people's yards and tell them, what they need to do. I'm not going to call code compliance on them because they're feeding a bird in their backyard. If they want to go ahead and feed birds and they're not doing it the right way, then you know what? You're not doing something good for the
So
wild. I
perhaps
don't want
the
that.
issue is the songbird, of
Okay, yeah,
prohibiting with
we'll,
songbird and being
we'll
used
eliminate that. I
distinctions.
just backyard birds, this is not my specialty, but I just, maybe what I meant there was maybe more of the educational section. But the big nuisance here is the ducks. Also, going back to Lacey, feeding all the cats, neutering them, that's not acceptable either. If anything, she shouldn't be feeding the cats so they could go ahead and feed off of mice and other critters that we have going on here in the city. And then also, what do you do when you have a neighboring property where the actual homeowner themselves is congregating ducks in their front lawn? Like the first picture that I showed, it's a constant. What leverage does that neighbor have? You can't call the cops on a neighbor that's feeding the ducks on their
You
front
shouldn't
lawn.
be. I mean, honestly, I don't think you should be calling the cops on a neighbor that's feeding ducks in their front yard.
And they're
Hopefully you deal with the neighbor and try to get them to, if they're feeding ducks on the swale, that's different because
Well,
that's
that's the
city
video there.
property.
Mhm.
And then you go and, but again,
Yeah,
is
but
that
no.
really what we want to have our code enforcement and our police show up with an ordinance and say you're in violation of this ordinance, which the person's not going to read. They're just going to get upset and, and have this feud. Whereas if we do an education with the information that you've provided, which is a lot of useful information, I think the public would be very receptive to it. Even the videos that you have of showing those videos on our website and encouraging people. I guess what I'm trying to say is this is interesting information. If it's not, in my opinion, if it's not made, you got to do this. It's more fascinating the way you've presented it to us of why we should discourage, feeding of wildlife, why we should consider the options. And I think it would be more useful getting that across to the residents by providing that information and working with the ecology board, which is basically, we have this board of people who are interested in that and could come up with suggestions, ideas, ways to reach the public for something that will benefit our community instead of, causing these issues of now the police are, why are there two police officers in front of this house? Because they're giving a ticket for feeding the ducks when, and the neighbor got enraged and, there's all these problems when there's, speeders going by and there's all these other issues.
Can I, Mayor, if you don't mind, I just want to make a distinct, that's why, and to your point, that's why I made the question about that it begs the question of how enforcement would work. I just wanted to make a quick distinction between what Lainey and her organization does. The county has designated the cats as community animals. So you could call the pound for a stray dog and they'll come and pick it up, but you can't, they will do nothing about cats because they have that designation by the county. So that's kind of a different issue.
But they don't do that anyway. animal shelter would not come out for a cat
Right,
either
they
way.
don't, right.
They don't go out for cats regardless of the community that they're in.
No, what I'm saying is that
unless it's a
the
rabid cat.
no, what I'm saying is that the cats have a designation by the county as being community
You're
animals.
saying cats. I'm sorry. I thought you
Cat.
meant the organization.
No, not Laney's organization caring after the strays.
Organization.
Felines
Right.
are have that special designation from the county. So there's really the best you can do is about what Laney and her organization is doing, which is trying to capture them and neuter them and then release them. So so there is a distinction between that and an invasive species like iguanas that like drop a lot of feces, and also these Muscovy ducks. I know some people that that really feel like it's a big nuisance, but I've learned that just because some people are complaining to you doesn't mean that there's consensus across the community to do something about it. So for fear that this is a solution in seeking a problem, I would encourage residents, email us, email the council group, come to the meetings. Let us know what your thoughts are on how much of a nuisance the Muscovy ducks in particular are, because they are an invasive species, and then we could go from there. My reading of what the vice mayor was proposing was something about not feeding the wild fowl, when particularly I was maybe I filled in the blanks, but I was thinking of the Muscovy ducks because I know that they're an invasive species. That's different from cats and other things like that. And maybe the confusion was all the additional information that you added about the bird feeders and the songbirds and all of that. Maybe that's why there was some confusion. But I think that what should drive everything is what the residents, if this is a pain point for a lot of residents, then I think we should hear about it. If it's just for a few, then maybe it's something that you take up locally, with a neighbor. Hey, talk to a neighbor. So I would encourage people to give us feedback about just how much of a nuisance they feel the Muscovy ducks, and we could go from there.
Anything? Through the chair. This is my last statement. I know that as much as we want to discuss with our neighbors and try to, mend end with our neighbors, sometimes it just doesn't work for whatever A, B, and C reason as much as we would like to. But that image of all those bulls in front of their house, just having birds, ducks come and then hanging out in the neighboring property's house where they don't want that. I mean, we do pay taxes for our services, and I think that's something that we should entertain. Let's maybe start with an educational course, right? But we're definitely going to need some leverage because it's getting out of control. The more ducks you have, the more polluted your waterways will get, the more they're going to, they're going to produce in mass production, and it's just going to be, it's going to get messy. And
I think the
I think if
message,
there's a case, a certain situation,
Yeah.
then that needs to be dealt with. But to make an ordinance because there's one case of something, then we have to be very careful because we're encompassing a lot. So I think perhaps what we can do is, well, let's do this. Do you want to make a motion?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to educate on, bird feeding and wildlife feeding. And also I would like to make a motion for the ecology board to come to resolutions to get some of these bad habits tamed because they're getting out of control. You saw our tikis. They're really nasty. We pay a lot of taxes and we shouldn't have to deal with a lot of little
And
things
if we
here.
don't have signs there, we should have signs.
We should
there,
have
and-
signs there. So let's see how that goes,
right,
but
so-
I think
Is
we,
there a second
especially on
for
Fairway.
Vice Mayor's motion?
I would
for
think
the
that there's
awareness
a
campaign?
consensus up there based on what she just mentioned. Yes, I think.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
you have a second?
You-
I'm sorry.
If you want to call the vote, I'll second that. Yes.
Okay, for an awareness campaign, is there, yes, to move it to the,
Okay.
ecology board and ask them to look into it further, to, come up with recommendations of how we can make it better across the board. And you're right, Vice Mayor, a tiki hut, you shouldn't show up there and, and it's a mess. And sometimes it's a mess because there's litter there. Somebody was there before and they just left their litter for
That's
any
what-
reason.
right,
It
that's why the
shouldn't
ducks
be,
are there.
anything that we're using.
And
Okay.
just to add
And
one
discussion.
thing, Vice Mayor, I think, and the rest of council,
I think it's important that this be a marker that we say, look, there's this problem. Here are some ways we think we're going to help resolve this through education and so forth and so on. And this may be revisited a couple of years from now if it doesn't. But, I think the spirit of that is it's in this
And I think that's,
resolution.
this is a kind of issue like the mask issue and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
When you walk somewhere and people are wearing their mask, you put it in and, you also feel comfortable, telling people, please wear your mask, or not shaking hands and all these things, and it becomes acceptable for us to know that this is, that, for others to know that you care about this, that it's an important issue and to voice it instead of feeling, well, I'm not going to say anything because how embarrassing or, they're going to get
Yeah,
mad.
and again, I think this is the correct approach, but we just motioned and seconded to go forward because you don't want to put the cart before the horse relative to enforcing something before you educate the people what you're enforcing. I think the education thing
Okay,
is
so we
number
have
one.
first and a second for an education campaign, awareness campaign, and using the city resources, social media, and the Gazette, the monthly issue of the Gazette, to along with the ecology board. Call the vote, please. Erica.
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Best.
Aye.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
The motion carries.
I would also, Mayor, through the chair, I'd also recommend to the Vice Mayor that perhaps you write an editorial to the Gazette for the next month issue on your presentation tonight. I thought it was well done.
Thank you. Let's see if I have squeeze in that time for that. But I don't know
But
if I
definitely, I think
make
you
it-
could prepare the information that you want for
Sure.
us to get it. There's still time for us to get it in this issue, which is what's mailed, the section that you pull out that's mailed to all homeowners
Okay.
of the
There's plen- there
Gazette.
should
And
be time,
that's
yeah.
the perfect place to, I think, to devote a good amount of the,
That's a good idea.
and then the videos can be on our website.
Excellent idea.
Which,
Okay.
as you know, from our,
Can we do another, I would like to propose that we put up the signs as well, especially on our waterways, not to feed the ducks, because we have zero. I
Sure,
remember a long time
absolutely.
ago, we
William-
had something about a fine of $500. It said it on the sign. All the signs are gone. We used to have them on the canal. They were small.
could you
white
see,
little
I know
ones.
the sign that I saw, I would show you a picture, but I don't
Isn't
know where
it
it's
the
too
one with the
high,
one
but
duck and then the little ones
the
behind
one
it?
in front
Uh-huh.
of, on Canal Street across from Crackers, was
And the re-
a nice size. It was probably, Vice Mayor, like this big, the sign.
Mhm.
And, it had, please do not feed the wildlife because, and it had all these,
And I think we had them on the other side of
We
the
did.
canal where the new building is going up. Because one of the problems we had there was that we had a Dunkin' Donuts store from Hialeah
Yeah.
that would come in and take the donuts that were left over, they couldn't sell. They
Yeah.
would bring them in every morning.
And just dumping
And
them
it
there.
was-
The ducks were all over the place. Yeah.
I don't think education will work with those two.
okay. Let's do the reports. The city attorney, please. Heidi, it's your last meeting with us for a while. I'm gonna miss you.
It is. This is I think my official last act for maternity leave. So I wanted to just thank you all for your support over the last I'm 38 weeks, so whatever that turns out to in terms of months. I very much appreciate all of your support, the love that you all, from city staff, administration to the council has extended to me and my family. It's very much appreciated. I wish you all a lovely holiday season. I know it seems like the holidays are far away, but I see Halloween, Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Christmas, New Year's all coming very quickly. So I want to wish you and the community a great holiday season. And I will see you all in 2022. And I'll be sure to send you pictures of mommy, daddy, and baby. And as far as the transition, I know I sent you all an email last week letting you know that the resources of our entire firm are available to you. Jose Arango is my partner who will be taking over for the next couple of months. So any requests that you have, please direct them through him. He'll be able to assist you or get someone else in the firm to do the support work. And with that, that's all I have. I'm glad we were able to resolve the runway case this evening and look forward to the next year.
Good luck, Katie.
Here,
It's
here.
posted. All right, city managers.
I wanted to mention that, as you know, we've been working on the Reagan Park Tiki Hut project that we had a grant from the Miami Realtors. We're working with them now. We're planning to tentatively have a ribbon cutting on Monday, October 25th. I'm waiting for confirmation on that. So as soon as I have that, I'll send you all a calendar invite. And that's for the 25th. And I believe Tammy's got some events coming up.
Yes, we have the virtual costume contest, which is October 4th through the 21st. The winners will be announced on the October 22nd. You need to post a picture and place the hashtag Spooky Springs 2021. We have the pumpkin carving contest that runs from October 11th through the 27th. The winner will be announced on the 27th. And again, you need to post a picture and hashtag Spooky Springs 2021. We have our costume contest on October 22nd at 7 p.m. at the Aquatic Center. We have the sales of the wristbands for the Hollow Springs on October 29th from 5 to 9 on the Circle. We have the breast cancer screening that was done by FIU and Brian Avila's office for October 23rd from 9 to 3 p.m. at the Rec Center. And then also we have for breast cancer, we have that Zumba class that is at 12 noon at the Rec Center as well. The same day. We have the ongoing vaccine sites. We have one tomorrow and one on Friday from 9 to 4. We have the farmers market that is going to begin on every Saturday for the from October 23rd till March 5th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we have the Witches of Westward at the Women's Club. If you haven't gotten your ticket, I believe they're available at eventbrite.com, and that's for October 23rd and 24th.
And one more thing, on next Monday, the 18th, the One Blood Mobile will be at the Rec Center again. From 10 to 3 or 9 to 3.
I think it was 9 to 3.
We have it posted on all our sites, so you can get it there.
Great, thank you. All right, so let's do the city council. We'll start with the vice mayor.
Thank you. I have nothing else to say. Thank you for a productive meeting. I'm looking forward to the educational awareness to go out on what we spoke about. I also came across something that Doral is doing. It's called the Downtown Doral Art Walk and Artisan Market. I thought that would be a really cute idea for Miami Springs. I'm not sure if maybe we can do that something between the Circle and Westward or just off of Westward. And basically it says here, walk your way through art, bring family and friends to our 4th annual art walk. This one-day event brings a wide range of local artists and performers to downtown Doral. So it would be a nice way to regroup. And they start in January, so you have the cooler weather. I know we have the farmers market, but maybe something like, you know, how Miracle Mile does, maybe to a smaller extent here, so that we can, you know, it could be anything art. It could be painting, it could be plant art, it can be, you know, anything homey in that aspect, and maybe have a performer and you gather around with friends and family, have a little barbecue or something. I'm not sure. Just, I think I'm gonna send it to the Recreation Commission.
I know that there's somebody reached out to me a while back, William, right? And I forwarded, she wanted to do an art festival here in the spring. She's done it in other cities and was interested, and I said to please reach out to William. Do you remember? And I guess she didn't follow up on that afterwards. She was interested in doing that. So I think those help when there's like an organizer outside the city.
Yeah,
that's
I'm gonna
like,
call her to
perhaps if
see
there's
how she
someone,
does it, just
right,
to get
that,
a better
you know,
idea.
that,
That's it. I have nothing else to say.
all right, thank you. Let's do this end first.
Sure.
Now, since Councilman Best was.
Just, I got a couple of things. So today's Columbus Day
Yes, it is.
and
Also,
Indigenous.
well, let me finish because I got it written down, right? This is the reason I'm bringing this out, right? It's officially Columbus Day and many states, not many, but a few states and other communities are calling it Indigenous Peoples Day. And you know, it's interesting to me as a historian, particularly that how particular topics are talked about, right? And so, you know, I'm not here to bash Christopher Columbus, or, you know, or anyone else for that, but it's important to recognize the parts of history that get left behind and the re-understanding of history. You know, when all those issues with the Confederate monuments were going on, generally I had arguments with some friends because I said, don't take them down, add to that, add to those, because it helps to tell the story that hasn't been told. The same thing happened with women for centuries in this country, not being recognized and so forth and so on. So I'm appreciative of the recognition of all, what it's meant to have this Columbian exchange, if you will, as we call it now. Historians are calling it a Columbian exchange. At least that's the way I was more recently teaching about it. Secondly, I wanted to point out, I wanted to mention that the Girl Scouts of Miami Springs, who never cease to amaze me, especially Connie Rodriguez, reached out to me on Saturday before we had a American Legion meeting, the second Saturday in the morning. We have our meeting at Bryson's. We always have breakfast after the meeting and so forth. And last year, the Girl Scouts did a project where they recognized veterans, residents of Miami Springs, and brought us an American flag. Mine is still on my front yard. And so they wanted to do something different this year. And the ladies that run that got together and suggested, why don't we have breakfast for veterans on around Veterans Day, because the Veterans Day actually is on a Thursday. That Saturday is really our next meeting. And so she wanted to do it for the American Legion, but not only just, any veteran that wanted to come by. So I wanted to put that bug in your ear because as I recall, the swearing in ceremony, you had them present, and they do incredible volunteer work, and the civic lessons that they teach the girls and young ladies all the way through, the group that's at the Springs High School. I think it's amazing work that they do, and we should continue to recognize that. The third thing I wanted to mention is that we only have now, with the motion that we passed this evening, 3 council meetings before the end of the year. And I kind of harp back to the idea of having boards come to present before us. And we didn't have any today, and we only have 3 more meetings. And I know at some point we talked about hopefully hearing from them before the end of the year. So we're kind of running up against that wall. And so I don't know, because I know some of them meet every other month, some of them meet 3-4 times a year, how this falls. But I just wanted to remind us, I like to have the opportunity to hear from a couple of more boards, if possible, during the time that we have left. And I'm sorry I missed the business development, economic development meeting. I wanted to come. I've heard some really good things about those conversations. Maybe we can have them come in at some point, early next year, not give them some time to work on these things. And then I just want to mention again, Larry Williams, because Larry Williams is 2 tours in Vietnam in combat as a gunner on a helicopter, which was probably one of the most perilous things that you could have done. And so I was really happy to help get some letters for him and that he's going to this honor flight next week. And to your thoughts, Councilwoman Bravo, about the Arts Festival or arts, I talked to William about this many months ago about there's that little plot of land right down westward. There's because a friend of mine who does artwork said, hey, why don't we do something right in there? And of course, this is the middle of COVID and stuff like that. So, as not only as a supporter and as an artist of sorts, I guess myself, I think, and even as I was campaigning, a lot of people talking about, we don't have any little art stores or a little gallery or anything like that. So all of these are things that I've shared with the Economic Development Board. So I like your idea. I didn't know about what Doral was doing, but I'd love to see art, more art in the city. So that's all I've got, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Behet.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to be brief. I just want to, after meeting last week on in that closed session with the city attorney and with the city manager, I can't say enough how pleased I am with the work that Heidi did and Eric and our council and the chief and also the city manager. I think that they did incredible work on behalf of the residents with that the runway issue. And so I just wanted to say thank you once again to that group for coming together and helping out.
Councilman Best.
Yeah, just four brief things. Congratulations, William. Thanks for what you do. Thanks for the indulgence of my colleagues up here in supporting that. Also, thank you for your indulgence in supporting some money for that honor flight up here tonight. I think that was money is going to be money well spent for those guys. To Councilman Vasquez's statement about Columbus Day and Indigenous Americans or Indigenous Peoples Day. My wife came home from work tonight. Everybody knows my wife's English, right? And I said, Claire, how come you had to go to work today? She goes, what do you mean? I said, well, it's Indigenous Americans Day. She goes, what are you talking about? I says, well, you Brits were here before we were a country. And she goes, I'm going to tell my boss that tomorrow. That's all I have, guys. Thanks.
Well, I called Social Security today. And they were
Okay, and I just I just wanted to mention again about the Business and Economic Development Task Force. What a great group, impressive. Their meeting was this past Thursday, their second meeting, and just in, I guess it was an hour and a half meeting.
Yeah, we didn't get out of here till what? It started at 6. We were out here about what, 20 to 8 or something?
Yeah, it wasn't, but just the information, the communication back and forth, the comments they were throwing out was just so impressive. I know Vice Mayor Bravo attended and Councilman Best, and I think we were all awed by the dialogue back and forth. And one of the things that they brought up, and I'd just like to throw it out, is which I thought was a really good point, was that we don't have a good social media presence for our city. When they were looking at it, they were disappointed at, we have a few things coming up and all this, but we're just not really, and that's where, and I think as Nestor Suarez was talking about today, the people are out there. We just need to, and we have the information. I mean, it's on our website, so we're providing all this information, but I know we have an open position right now for that. And I hope that we can really tackle that in the next few months of just making it, using it for the best of our community, to advertise our community, our all that we have to offer. And a good example of that advertisement was this past Sunday. I don't know if you saw in the Miami Herald, they did a feature on crackers, on the new owners at Crackers. And it was really, front page of the local section, I guess, but a color photo of Crackers and, everything they want to do. And just saying how this is just a gem right here in the middle of Miami-Dade County. So And we have so many other restaurants and shops that are similar to that, we need to try to promote and improve our business situation for them. So I encourage, I guess what I wanted to say, and I'm being very lengthy, is I encourage all business owners in Miami Springs to please put the date on your calendar. The first Thursday of November will be the third meeting. It's at 6 o'clock here in the council chambers. The task force really wants to hear from the businesses to find out, what their needs are, what they see as problems, to get their comments, their input, their suggestions. So I'm inviting every business owner in Miami Springs to please show up at the meeting and provide your input. And with that, thank you so much. Everyone have a great evening.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, Mayor.
Oh, Nicole, stay.
Did I make you jump, Jackie? Billy used to do it so loud and always jump. He'd always get me like bouncing out of my seat.
All right, brother.
Step down. Over that comment.
Over the comment? Yeah, yeah.